Welcome to the Next Paradigm, the show where cutting edge science, biohacking, and longevity collide to help you take radical control over your biology. My name is Alex.
And I'm Zara. Whether you're here to optimize your energy, extend your lifespan, or just feel more you, this podcast is your field guide to the frontiers of human performance.
Today, we're diving into a hormone that most people think they understand, but very few truly master testosterone. This episode is going to be a powerful for men listening, of course, because men are interested in that subject. But let me tell you, women, please don't tune out because if you care about a man in your life, this conversation will absolutely matter to you as well.
Whether it's your partner, your brother, your dad, your son, or your own future self if you're in perimenopause, testosterone isn't just about muscles and sex. It's about drive, resilience, ambition, and brain power.
Okay, well, let's start with something scary. In the last 20 years, average testosterone levels in men have dropped more than 30%. This isn't just getting older, as medical system would like to tell us. This is a problem. Environmental toxins, chronic stress, poor sleep, endocrine disruptors. This is essentially a modern crisis that's hidden and not publicly discussed.
But don't worry, we're not just here to scare you. We're going to break down why testosterone is crashing, how to test your levels, what your numbers actually mean, and what you can do, naturally and biohacking style, to get it back online.
By the end of this episode, you'll have a roadmap from food to sleep to light, breath, herbs, and yes, red light on your crown jewels. We are covering it all today.
And one quick ask, have you ever tested your testosterone? If you have, we'd love to hear your number and what you noticed. DM us on Instagram and let's compare notes.
All right, let's drop into the data, the myth busting, and the hacks. This is Next Paradigm, and today we are raising the bar on what it means to be high test human. Okay, so let's start at the foundation. What does testosterone actually do in the body? Because when most people hear testosterone, they think muscles, maybe aggression. Roid rage was a popular expression in the past, but things are changing. And the truth is, it's way deeper than that.
Right, it's like the misunderstood hormone of the century. So clear it up for us. What does optimal testosterone really do?
Okay, well, let's start breaking it down. Well, first, yeah, it builds muscles and burns fat, especially visceral fat. If you're hitting the gym and you're working out hard but not seeing results, guess what? Low T could be the reason.
That explains a lot of frustrated guys out there who are doing everything right and still getting nowhere.
Exactly. But beyond the body, testosterone is a neurohormone. It affects the brain as much as it drives confidence, assertiveness, and your ability to make decisions under pressure. This is a hormone of decisive action. So, for example, for women, it's not about machismo or misogyny. It's really like if you want your man to get things done for you, the man needs testosterone.
So this is part of that alpha energy vibe we talk about, like being clear, present, forward moving.
Totally. Testosterone influences dopamine signaling, which is tied to the drive, focus, reward, and even risk taking. Low T doesn't just make you tired, it can literally make you apathetic to everything.
And libido?
Absolutely. Testosterone supports sex drive, erection quality, and sperm count, right, for fertility. It's not just about getting turned on, it's about reproductive function and sexual performance in general. And low T often means low morning wood, low desire, and major fertility issues.
That's something I think a lot of women notice before men do. They feel a change in their partner's energy or desire, and they don't always realize it could be hormonal.
Yeah, absolutely. Then there is also the mood, right? Healthy testosterone protects against depression. It enhances serotonin and stabilizes emotions. When it drops, men often feel emotionally flat, irritable, and even anxious and depressed.
That's huge. And nobody talks about testosterone when it comes to mental health. But it makes total sense.
Last but not least, testosterone protects your bones and supports cardiovascular health. It helps maintain bone density and regulates red blood cell production. Men with clinically low T are at higher risk of osteoporosis and heart disease.
So it's basically the hormone of strength: physical, mental, emotional, and even spiritual.
Wow, that's perfect. Exactly. Testosterone is an internal signal to conquer, not just survive, to thrive. When it's optimized, you feel like, your engine is purring. When it's low, it feels like your pilot light goes out.
All right, so we've just laid out everything testosterone should be doing for you. But let's get real. How do you know when it's gone off the rails? What are the signs your testosterone might be low?
Okay, well, let's begin with some obvious things, right? If you're a guy looking in a mirror and wondering where your muscle went and why you're suddenly carrying belly fat or man boobs, that's a red flag.
So, like, if your t shirt used to fit in the shoulders and now it just clings to your stomach?
Yep, exactly. Low testosterone slows down muscle protein synthesis and shifts your metabolism towards fat storage, especially visceral fat like around your belly, which increases estrogen and makes the problem worse.
A vicious cycle. And libido?
That's usually the first thing men notice because sex drive is quite important. If we're talking about low sex drives, weaker and fewer erections, trouble maintaining an erection, and less sensitivity or pleasure, which is really, really, really difficult problem for men. Morning wood disappears, and you're just kind of checked out sexually.
And what about emotional and mental symptoms? I know a lot of men don't always connect the dots there.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky. Testosterone isn't just physical, it's emotional armor. When it drops, your mood swings, low motivation, and this insidious feeling of why should I bother? It's not really sadness exactly, it's more apathy than anything else.
That blah zone, where nothing really lights you up anymore?
Yeah, exactly. And then there are more subtle signs like brain fog, you can't think straight, trouble focusing, irritability, indecision, and kind of like withdrawal, even socially, right? Like you don't feel like going anywhere, you don't feel like hanging out with your friends. You stop speaking up, stop showing up, you start avoiding things that used to energize you, but you just don't feel like doing them anymore.
And I'm guessing a lot of guys either don't recognize this or they get misdiagnosed.
Yep, that's the real danger. A ton of men are walking into the doctor's office with low T symptoms and walking out with an antidepressant, or, doctor telling them your levels are normal, you're just getting older. Low testosterone often masquerades as depression or burnout, right? So that's why doctors have difficulty diagnosing it, and, lab levels don't necessarily tell you the full picture.
So if you're listening right now and thinking, wait, that's me, this is your moment. These symptoms aren't just life, they're signals.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we come back, we'll we'll look at why testosterone is dropping so fast, right? Because there's reasons for that. Even in guys in their 20s and 30s, which is crazy because they should have the absolute peak testosterone levels. This is where we get into the real culprits. Okay, don't go anywhere. A quick sponsor break before we continue. If you're struggling with health issues and can't get help from traditional doctors and medical system, Odin Labs offers something unique. It's called Bioenergetic Protocol, and it's designed to solve chronic health conditions. To learn more, book a free consultation at odinhealthlab.com. That's ODIN healthlab.com. And now back to our episode. So now that we've covered the symptoms, let's ask the big question. Why is testosterone dropping in the first place?
I think most people just assume it's aging. Like you hit 40 and your hormones naturally fall off a cliff, right?
Well, that's the narrative out there for sure, but that isn't the whole truth. Biologically, yes, testosterone does decline as you age. Starting around late 20s or early 30s, your natural production can dip by about 1% per year. That's part of the endocrine system slowing down.
Okay, so some drop is expected, but that wouldn't explain the massive plunge we're seeing today?
Exactly. What we see now isn't normal aging, it's accelerated hormonal collapse. And that has everything to do with the environment we live in and the stress we carry.
Let's dig into those modern testosterone killers.
Okay, so let's start with cortisol. So, this is the thing that kind of shocks me the most because nobody really talks about it at all. So, you know, cortisol is a stress hormone. A high cortisol literally competes with testosterone. So, they share a precursor called pregnenolone. And if you're chronically stressed, so let's say you have a stressful job, your life is stressful in general, your body literally says, we don't need to reproduce, we just need to survive. So it diverts resources to cortisol instead of testosterone. And cortisol is one of those things, right, that's produced by stress. It's a signaling to the body to be alert, right?
So fight or flight wins over fertility. Makes sense. What about sleep?
That's another huge one. Most testosterone production happens during sleep, specifically deep sleep and REM cycles. And if you're staying up, you know, scrolling, drinking, or just getting poor quality sleep in general, you're basically crushing your testosterone. You could be 25 and still have the hormonal profile of a 60-year-old because of that.
That's wild. And we haven't even gotten to the chemical soup.
What we're talking about is endocrine disruptors, right? So we are surrounded by plastics, pesticides, receipts with toxic paint on them, personal care products that directly basically disrupt our endocrine system. They're all loaded with xenoestrogens. And they're basically compounds that mimic estrogen in our body and essentially suppress natural testosterone production.
So the shampoo, the lotion, the food storage, even your takeout container, it's all working against you.
Pretty much, right? And, you know, we've talked about it in another episode before this, but it's how your body deals with it. So it's different for other people. But as a whole society, yes, absolutely. You know, like all of these things are hugely, hugely responsible for this decline. And then there's diet side, right? You know, we drink alcohol, there's seed oils, ultra processed foods, these create inflammation essentially in your body. And when your body is inflamed, essentially disrupt blood sugar and lead to insulin resistance, which causes your body to store more fat, right?
And fat raises estrogen, right?
You got it. Yes, body fat, especially belly fat, contains aromatase, an enzyme that literally converts testosterone into estrogen, right? So if you are significantly overweight, what's happening is that the more fat you carry, the more kind of feminizing hormones you produce, the less testosterone you have.
So this is why some guys feel like they've lost their edge, even in their 30s or 40s.
Exactly, exactly. And that happens more and more often nowadays. It's not that, you know, you're aging badly, it's that your biology is getting hijacked by all of this stuff around us. And we're not paying attention to it, you know? So, like, it's a real problem. And before we go on, here's another curveball. Thyroid dysfunction can also mimic low testosterone, right? So if your TSH, free T3, or reverse T3 are off, you can feel all the same symptoms, the same kind of low energy, brain fog, even low libido. So that's why this testosterone disorders get misdiagnosed so much because there's so many things that can affect them.
So if you're getting tested, you have to look at more than just testosterone.
Absolutely. You got to take a full system approach because if you just chase the number and miss the root cause, you're going to still not get the result that you want. You're going to be still stuck.
Okay, so we've talked about testosterone, but what if the problem isn't just testosterone itself? What if it's further up the chain?
You hit the nail on the head. So testosterone isn't created in a vacuum, right? It's part of a hormonal cascade. Think of it as a pyramid, right? So at the top of the pyramid is pregnenolone. It's basically the mother hormone from which other hormones are made. From there, it gets converted into DHEA and then eventually into testosterone, estrogen, or cortisol, depending on what your body needs at that moment.
So pregnenolone is like the raw material, and your body decides where to send it?
Yes, exactly. And here's the kicker. If your body is under chronic stress, it prioritizes cortisol production over testosterone. It's called pregnenolone steal. Your body basically hijacks your building blocks to survive instead of thrive.
That's wild. And so you could have all the raw materials, but your stress chemistry reroutes them away from testosterone?
Yep. Now, let's talk about another thing. Let's talk about DHEA. This is the stepping stone between pregnenolone and testosterone. So, DHEA is incredibly important for men. It helps build muscle, improve energy, stabilizes mood, supports natural testosterone production.
But DHEA can drop with age too, right?
Yes, and even more so with chronic stress, inflammation, and poor sleep. That's why we talked about it right before this. So when guys are low in DHEA, they're often running on fumes hormonally. But here's the thing: DHEA supplementation isn't necessarily what you want to do. It's not a free for all.
So let's get practical. What are your rules for supplementing DHEA or pregnenolone?
Okay, let's start with testing, right? Because we first need to find out if there is a problem. So don't just guess. You can get you can check DHEAS and pregnenolone on a standard blood panel, or you can do a deeper dive with a Dutch test. It's a type of test, which not only shows you the hormone levels, but how your body is metabolizing them as well, which is super important to understand.
So once you get those results, what should you be looking for?
Okay, let's go through a few scenarios as examples. Okay, so scenario number one, you have low DHEA and low pregnenolone. Okay, so what does it mean? You're likely depleted from chronic stress, your hormone foundation is thin, and your body essentially is in a catabolic, energy drained state. So, what should you do? Well, you can start with some supplementation with adaptogens like ashwagandha or rhodiola to lower stress load. Basically, those two supplements help you de stress your body. So, supporting sleep, low inflammation, and then consider low dose DHEA, maybe 5-10 milligrams per day, and healthy fat and cholesterol rich food to replenish raw materials to make DHEA. Okay, so scenario number two, you have low DHEA but normal pregnenolone. You are not really converting pregnenolone downstream properly. Your body might be prioritizing cortisol. So what should you do? Investigate cortisol levels with a 4-point saliva or Dutch test. Use lifestyle hacks like morning sunlight, breath work, or cold exposure to reset HPA access. And you can also supplement with methylated B vitamins, magnesium, and vitamin C to support adrenal output. Okay, scenario number three, you have high DHEA and elevated estrogen. Okay, you might be over supplementing now with DHEA, or your body is over aromatizing, converting hormones into estrogen. So, what do? You need to stop or reduce DHEA supplementation if you are doing it. Address aromatase activity, lower body fat, eliminate seed oils, support the liver with maybe some NAC or milk cythal, and natural aromatase inhibitors like zinc, DIM, calcium D glutarate could help as well. Okay, scenario number 4, normal DHEA but still low testosterone. Well, your conversion is blocked, possibly due to inflammation, insulin resistance, or even micronutrient deficiencies. So check fasting insulin, check CRP, and nutrient panels. Increase movement, remove sugar spikes, and optimize zinc, magnesium, and vitamin D levels.
I love how actionable that is. So instead of just saying your T is low, you're identifying why and working your way up the hormone chain to correct it.
Yep, exactly. Fixing testosterone it's not like fixing a river. You don't just scoop water out of the bottom and go to the source and clean it there. The deeper your lab work is, the more precise your strategy can be.
Makes total sense. So now that we know the hierarchy, let's move on to the numbers that actually matter when you test.
Okay, so here's the deal. Most guys get their testosterone tested once, and the doctor says, you're in a normal range. But this is the problem. Normal doesn't mean optimal. It just means average. And right now, average is broken.
So let's walk through the key markers and the real target ranges.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is total testosterone. That's basically the overall amount floating around in your system. So the lab range is between 250 to 1100. But that's a big range. So what is the optimal range? For most men, you kind of want to be between 600 to 900.
So if you're at 320 and the lab says you're fine, you're not?
Exactly. And especially if your doctor says you're fine. It's your symptoms that matter, right? So if your symptoms are low and your lab work says you're in range, you're not fine. If you feel like a zombie, that's exactly how misdiagnoses happen. More important than total T, let's talk about free testosterone. So this is the bioavailable form for the testosterone in your body. It's the form that your body can actually use. You kind of want to be between 15 to 25, maybe 30 if you're an athlete or high performer, right?
So it's like free T is the horsepower and total T is just what's in the tank.
Yep, exactly. That's a perfect metaphor. If your free T is low, it doesn't matter how full the tank looks. It's still a problem. Okay, so now let's look at sex hormone binding globulin. This is a protein that grabs onto your testosterone and keeps it inactive, right? So too much of it is not a good idea. Your testosterone gets trapped, and if your total T looks good, so even if your total T looks good and you have too much sex hormone binding globulin, it's not going to work very well. So ideal levels are between 20 to 40. That's kind of where you want to be, but it is context dependent on your situation.
What raises SHBG?
Well, chronic stress does. I don't know if you noticed, but it's like reoccurring thing that happens, right? So chronic stress, thyroid issues, but doing stupid things like calorie restrictions, right? So let's say you don't eat properly for years, that could be a problem. And sometimes even over supplementing with things like DHEA or estrogenic herbs, right? So that's why you need to do all of this stuff with a professional under guidance so that you know exactly what's happening and what you're doing. You also want to test estradiol. So that's another hormone that you want to test. And that's basically the main form of estrogen in the body. It's not really your enemy, but the balance is key in this case. So if it's too low, you will feel cold, emotionless, disconnected. If it's too high, you get man boobs, water retention, mood swings. So what is the ideal range? I would say between 20 and 30 would be ideal for most men.
So estrogen's not just a female thing. Men need it, just not too much?
Exactly. It supports mood, bone health, and even libido, right? We talked about libido, but it has to be in the right amount. Okay, so here's the catch. If your cortisol and thyroid hormones are out of whack, your testosterone will never stabilize. Okay, so you need to test TSH, free T3, free T4, reverse T3, and you can do that with a 4-point saliva cortisol or a Dutch panel.
So low T could be a symptom, not the root.
Exactly. Always look at the whole hormonal ecosystem before making moves. Okay, so some testing tips here. So test in the morning between 7 and 10 a.m., and you need to be fasted. Definitely avoid alcohol, hard workouts 24 hours before because workouts can affect testosterone. So you don't want to artificially raise or lower testosterone. Repeat tests. So don't rely on one data point. You can kind of track over time, and that's what gives you the best picture about what's happening in your body.
So it's not just what you test, it's when and how you interpret it.
Exactly. So you think of your lab results as your map, but you need to have the right lens to read them, right? Like you kind of need to look through the right lens to understand what it all means. And that's kind of what we're trying to illustrate today so you can kind of easier visualize this.
Next up, we're shifting from diagnostics to action. What are the best ways to naturally boost testosterone, starting right now?
Okay, well, let's flip the switch from testing to transforming, right? Okay, so the good news is that your lifestyle is actually your best medicine. Most guys can unlock serious hormonal gains by making a few key changes in their lifestyle. Okay, so first up, lift heavy. Okay, so this is a thing that everybody knew, but with one exception here. So I'm not talking about lifting in any way. I'm talking about compound movements. So things like squats, deadlifts, pulls, rows. Essentially, the thing that nobody likes in the gym, leg day. The bigger the muscle groups you train, the greater the testosterone spike.
Why is that? What makes compound lifts so powerful for hormones?
That's a great question. Okay, so it's all about demand on the central nervous system and muscle fiber recruitment. Okay, so think about it this way. When you train multiple large muscle groups at once, like legs or back, you're forcing your body to adapt at a hormonal level. That means releasing more anabolic hormones like testosterone and growth hormone.
So it's like triggering a full system response instead of isolating one little muscle.
Exactly. Doing bicep curls might give you a pump and you might look good, but you won't send the build and recover signal to your whole endocrine system the way a squat would do. Heavy, explosive, full body effort is what makes your body say, I need to be stronger. And in turn, I need more testosterone.
And that message carries over into everything else: energy, confidence, drive.
Exactly, yes. The gym is where you turn on the signal, but it changes your brain and biology far beyond the barbell.
So legs over biceps curls every time?
Yeah, exactly. Leg day builds men and stack that with progressive overload. So basically, that's lifting heavier each week. A little bit heavier, but still heavy.
And let's not forget the big one: sleep.
Absolutely. So this is another like simple free biohack that in the medical system nobody talks about really. Like doctor will not tell you to sleep better. So 7.5 to 9 hours is essentially a non-negotiable. And how many of us get full 9 hours of sleep? Almost nobody, right? So build your testosterone during deep sleep and REM sleep. If you're up late using screen cutting corners, your body shuts down the anabolic hormone production, right? So it's huge.
Okay, let's get into a spicy one: sexual energy retention.
Glad you asked. So that's definitely next level biohacking. Not something that I've ever mastered. I can't say that I played around with it a little bit, but it's a concept that's super interesting. So constant ejaculation depletes testosterone, especially in men over 30. You want to explore, well, there's actually, science disagrees with that. They say no, there is no relation between ejaculation and testosterone levels. However, Asian cultures, they all preach this do not ejaculate, right? So I say there is something to it. You want to explore basically concepts of orgasm without ejaculation. So basically using breath work and pelvic floor control to preserve vital energy and boost long term vitality.
Let's move into food. What should be on a high testosterone grocery list?
Okay, so this is a little counterintuitive. Think of these three rules. So first of all, you want to eat cholesterol-rich foods, not something that your doctor usually tells you, right? Because cholesterol is the enemy, right? But it's not true because cholesterol is actually the raw material for testosterone. That means things like egg yolks, grass-fed butter, red meat, and liver. So another thing you need to is load up on zinc and magnesium. And that can be found in oysters, pumpkin seeds, dark chocolate, and spinach. These minerals essentially support testicular function and hormonal signaling. You want to cut the estrogen bombs, so to say. So things like soy, flaxseed oil, and in general, industrial seed oils that have been heavily processed, like canola and vegetable oil, mainly because how they process them, right? So all of these, seed oils mimic estrogen and then disrupt your endocrine system as a result.
So, food isn't just fuel, it's a hormonal message.
You got it. Yes. Every bite tells your body what kind of man you are to become. And women, we haven't talked about testosterone's role in women. That's not what this episode is about, but it's just as important for women as for men. Okay, so now let's talk about some smart supplementation because supplements can be very, very powerful. They just need to be done in a specific way. And I would try the lifestyle hacks first before you go to supplements. Supplements should be kind of like the thing that you do after you tried the lifestyle stuff. So, okay, so here are some supplements you could take to boost testosterone specifically. Okay, I'm going to go in order. So, Tonkat Ali is one. It boosts free testosterone and lowers sex hormones binding globulin. I would do, you know, 200 to 400 milligrams per day in the mornings. Fadoja agrestis, it stimulates LH, luteinizing hormone, to support the testicular function, basically. You can kind of do cycles of 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off with that supplement. Boron is another one. It's a trace mineral that lowers SHBG, freeing up more testosterone, right? So dose is about 3 to 10 milligrams per day, depending on your labs. Ashwagandha, we talked about it before, it lowers cortisol, which indirectly improves testosterone because, like if you are stressed out, the first thing you need to do is fix the stress. So that helps you with stress and sleep issues. Creatine is another one that's traditionally been used for muscle building, but it's actually huge. It's an OG performance booster. It basically improves strength, brain health, cognition, supports testosterone pathways. It's an amazing supplement to take. I would recommend it to anybody.
That's a serious toolkit. And I love that you started with the basics: lift, sleep, sun, and sex energy before jumping into pills.
Exactly. The truth is that supplements should be an amplifier, not basically the band, right? They should be kind of a supportive element of your lifestyle that supports testosterone production.
So if you're listening right now and thinking, wait, that's me, this is your moment. These symptoms aren't just life, they're signals.
Yeah, so I would say, yeah, start simple, get sunlight, hit the gym, eat liver, take a cold shower, cut seed oils. That's how you reclaim your biology. Kind of one powerful and a lot of times very cheap way, step at a time.
All right, so we've covered the fundamentals: training, diet, sleep, supplements. But now we're heading into next level territory. Let's talk advanced biohacks, the kind of stuff most guys have never even heard of.
Okay, so this is where it gets really fun. At least for me, I love these techniques. These tools might sound unconventional, but they're backed by serious data and use of some of the top performance athletes, health hackers around the world. Okay, so let's start with red light therapy, specifically photobiomodulation. Applying red light or near infrared light to testicles stimulate Leydig cells, which are responsible for producing testosterone essentially. One specific study showed increased testosterone production after just 10 to 15 minutes of red light exposure just a few times a week. That's pretty crazy.
Okay, so you're telling guys to shine a light on their balls?
Yep, I am. Just make sure it's the right kind of wavelength red light. Around 660 nanometers to 850 nanometers. It's a specific band that's particularly effective. And also, don't overdo it. More isn't better. Think maybe 5-10 minutes, 2 to 4 times per week.
Next up, cold exposure. I know a lot of people are into ice baths and cold plunges now, but how does that affect testosterone?
Yeah, cold therapy activates your sympathetic nervous system and increases LH, luteinizing hormone, which directly signals your testicles to produce more testosterone. So, cold also improves sperm quantity and count, reduces inflammation, and supports dopamine, which boosts drive and motivation. So, all of those things relate to testosterone.
So cold resets your system and raises your baseline?
Yeah, exactly. Even a cold shower or 2-3 minutes in a cold plunge can have powerful endocrine effects. Just keep the cold on your body, not on your testes. Prolonged exposure directly to the testes can actually suppress T. Okay, another thing is HIIT training. So this is pretty crazy, but it's like a smart HIIT training. High intensity interval training, it's not just about fat loss. It can also create testosterone rebound effect.
How does that work?
Well, short, intense bursts of effort, like sprints or battle ropes, trigger acute stress, followed by compensatory hormone surge. If if you pair HIIT with deload or recovery phase, the body comes back with higher testosterone and better performance, just as a biological effect of this. The key is intensity, all out burst, and then full recovery between sets. So reheat is another way of doing it that's pretty crazy and pretty fast. So I'm going to tell you exact protocol. You warm up for 5 minutes, go all out for 20 seconds. All out means you have to be probably close to 80% of your maximum heart rate for 20 full seconds. And again, all of those exercises that we mentioned before, like sprints, going up the hill, or even high knees really, really fast can work. Then you recover for 2-3 minutes, bring down your heart rate, do it again, and do it a couple more times. So do it 3 times reheat sprint and 3 times recovery. That's 15 minutes. You do that 3 times per week, and you're gonna see crazy results from that.
And then there's sauna, which I know is one of your non-negotiables.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up with sauna, so sauna is near and dear to my heart. And regular sauna use does two big things for testosterone. So first of all, it helps detoxifying estrogenic compounds through sweat, right? It's part of a detox regimen, I guess. It also increases heat shock proteins, which support cellular repair and testicular function. Studies show that sauna use 3 to 4 times per week improves hormonal balance, circulation, and even growth hormone levels.
That's like a full hormone support stack in one hot box.
Exactly. And combine it with cold, so hot and cold contrast therapy, you got one of the most potent recovery and endocrine tools available. And guess what? It's free.
So to recap, Shine a light, take a plunge, sprint like hell, then sit in fire. Got it.
Yep, pretty much. These are the next level levers that are very, very easy and they don't cost much. And when layered on top of the dialed in lifestyle, they can really push your testosterone to high gear, naturally, sustainably, and without needing a prescription.
So we've gone deep into natural strategies, advanced hacks, and hormone precursors. But let's be honest. What happens when none of it's enough? When is it time to consider actual hormone therapy?
That's a really important question. Sometimes, despite efforts, the diet, the lifting, the supplements, the sleep, testosterone just won't bounce back. This could be due to genetic, past trauma, chronic illness, or just age related decline. I am actually one of those people. I always had low testosterone, so I have no choice. No matter what I do, I cannot get my testosterone up naturally.
So if symptoms are still wrecking your quality of life, even after doing the work, then it might be time?
Exactly. If you've been consistently trying to do these natural hacks for 3 to 6 months and you're still dealing with low libido, poor recovery, emotional flatness, or depression, even, it might be the time to look into testosterone replacement therapy or TRT as it's called. So when we're talking about TRT, there is various forms of it, right? And well, let's discuss few kind of delivery methods for testosterone first, right? So first, there is, creams or gels, right? They usually absorb through skin, easy to apply daily, but your absorption can vary, right? So that could be an issue. And so need to be careful not to transfer the testosterone to other people, like partners or kids. Injections is another way of doing it. So now both sub-Q and in the muscle injections are available. And, they vary really from weekly to kind of like 2 to 3 times per week to sometimes even every day, couple of times a day, depending on what type of injectable you are using. This gives your blood stable levels, but depending on how you use it, it might spike it and then drop it off, right? So you really need to figure out which option works best with your biochemistry. Pellets is another one. It's a small testosterone pellet that's inserted under your skin every 3 to 4 months, so you don't really need to do much. But to be honest, you have the least control in this method in terms of dosage. And if you are getting bad side effects, like because there could be side effects, you can't really do much about it once you inserted that pellet.
So it really depends on how much control and convenience you want and whether you're willing to track and adjust.
That's exactly it. I want to mention something. This is important. TRT isn't without risks, right? And you kind of need to consider it before you start the program, right? So, for example, it really affects your fertility, right? So, it can cause testicular shrinkage because your brain literally stops signaling for natural testosterone production. There's techniques to overcome that. However, that is legitimate concern, right? And it will suppress your fertility while you're on this, and sometimes permanently, right? So if you want to have children, still you need to. I know that they use some techniques to overcome that, but that is definitely a concern. And more kind of like prominent concern is the raise of hematocrit. Okay, so basically that's your red blood cell count. And what it does, it makes your blood thicker and thicker. And you legitimately can have risk of cardiac arrest, an increased risk of clots as well. So when you are on TRT, you absolutely need to donate blood to produce new fresh blood to reduce the hematocrit count on your blood. That needs to be monitored by a doctor. And it also can raise your estrogen levels, right? Because, like if let's say your testosterone is high, it automatically raises estrogen. And because of that, Raise of estrogen can have, things like mood swings or water retention or even man boobs.
So it's not about jumping in, it's about going in with eyes wide open and having a game plan.
Yes, absolutely. You know, the most important part is you need to have medical supervision. Really, like I cannot emphasize that enough. This is not something you want to be doing on your own. You must commit to regular lab monitoring, usually 3 to 6 months, and you 100% need to check your hematocrit and hemoglobin levels, estradiol levels, prostate health, lipid profile. All of these are super, super, super important. And like I said, you might need to donate blood periodically to manage hematocrit levels. That is a really, really important safety concern.
This isn't a casual thing. This is clinical grade hormone intervention, and it has to be treated that way.
Okay, so one more warning before we proceed. There is a black market out there that sells testosterone, right? And whatever you get off the internet or, your gym buddy is often unregulated and underdosed or overdosed or can be contaminated. You don't actually know how well it was produced. And because of this no quality control and no safety, there's a real risk of messing up your endocrine system. And I've heard of really horrible situations when the provider that we're using was not doing things safely.
So if you're going to do this, do it with a hormone literate practitioner, someone who knows how to optimize, monitor, and guide you safely.
Exactly. Like TRT is a tool, it's not a shortcut. And when used properly, it legitimately will change your life. It changed mine 100%. But when it's misused, it can create long term problems that you did not sign up for when you consider this.
We've covered testing, training, food, light, cold, hormones, but there's one more layer to this, and it might be the most important: your mindset.
Yeah, because testosterone isn't just a number on a lab report. It really is a signal. It's your body telling you how ready you are to lead, to act, to compete, to protect. When testosterone is low, you're essentially firing blanks, not just in the gym or bedroom, but in your vision in general, in your life.
And that can show up as tolerating too much, right? Sticking with the job you hate, the relationship that's draining you, the habits that are numbing you out.
Exactly. Low testosterone blunts your edges in all parts of your life. It makes you more passive, less likely to take risks, less likely to challenge the system, and less likely to change your life. That's not really a character flow if testosterone affects you in this way. It's biochemistry.
But the flip side is powerful. When T rises, when it's dialed in, you feel that internal surge. You want to take action, protect what matters, build something, lead, push your edge.
Exactly. And you don't have to become a meathead or a caveman. Like it doesn't have to be negative, right? To embody a healthy masculinity. What we're talking about is just focused energy, the kind that get things done, protects the tribe, that creates. It can be extremely positive.
And that starts with owning your biology, right?
Absolutely. If you don't protect your hormones, the world around you will hijack them for you. We talked about toxins, noise, comfort, cheap dopamine, weak food, weak values. It all chips away from your power, right? Little by little, it takes your testosterone away.
So if you're listening right now and feeling stuck, tired, soft, scattered, this isn't about guilt. It's a wake up call.
Yeah, in a way, it's a call to arms. Like let's reclaim that positive masculinity. Let's reclaim your testosterone, reclaim your identity, your edge, your mission, and your ability to impact the world from a place of strength, not weakness.
That's what Next Paradigm is all about: self empowerment through biology, through awareness, and through action.
Okay, let's bring this home. If you made it this far, you're not just curious, you're pretty committed to this. So here is a recap of Next Paradigm action plan for reclaiming your testosterone. Okay, so first off, we talked about testing your levels. Don't guess. Get your labs done. Get, the test for total T, free T, SHBG, estradiol, DHA, cortisol, thyroid, all those basic labs we talked about. Address your lifestyle, right? Like it's free and easy, right? Lift heavy. We talked about those compound big muscle exercises, right? Like lifting heavy using big muscles. Fix your sleep, get the sun on your eyes. Fix your circadian rhythm. And stop eating like a lab rat. Eat like a warrior. If you're biohacking, use smart biohacks, right? Use that proven stuff we talked about, the red light, cold therapy, breath work, those crazy reheat workouts to speed up the benefits of increased testosterone. And, if you are using supplements, you don't use gimmicks, use scientifically proven things like adaptogens to reduce your stress. And if you're considering therapy, do it only when it's truly needed. When you've tried other things and it is not working, absolutely you need to do it. So, this is your biology. It's not a shortcut by big pharma, right? So you need to be careful with that.
This isn't about perfection. It's about awareness, agency, and showing up like the most resilient, grounded version of you. And for the women listening, this is how you support the men you love with truth, tools, and the belief that they can rise.
If you want to take this to the next step, the sponsor of the show, Odin Health Labs, is offering a free consultation. They will help you go over the labs, look at the ranges that you're currently getting, your daily habits, your supplement stack, and customize it to your specific needs, right? Because everybody's situation is different. So if that's interesting, contact them at odinhealthlab.com. That's and ODIN healthlab.com and book a free consultation.
And if you have not subscribed yet to our podcast, please do so now. It helps our show, and you won't miss an episode. It's a win-win.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for thinking bigger and for being part of this new wave of human performance. This is Next Paradigm.
We'll see you next time.